Mhm. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. I am from Group 9 and today my group mates and I will be presenting one of the method in TESL, which is the silent way method. So these are my group mates, Anis Nurjannah, Ainur Sharhanis, Auni Nurin Shafira, and lastly me, Nadia Auni Muhammad. Okay, so we will start with what is exactly the silent way. Alright, so this unconventional method was developed alongside Afro hairstyles and platform shoes back in the 1970s by mathematician Caleb Gattegno. It was based upon ideas outlined in his book Teaching Foreign Languages in Schools, The Silent Way, that was published in 1963. So like most cultural events of the 60s and 70s, it was a reaction to previous approaches and methods that were considered excessively rigid and constricting. So the basic method that underlies this approach is simple but potentially quite powerful. In contrast to traditional methods, the emphasis is on the student's learning rather than the teacher's teaching. In fact, it is not uncommon for the teacher to remain silent for parts of a lesson. Okay, so in the absence of the teacher dominating the lesson, the students takes an active role in the learning process, and their input guides the learning trajectory. The teacher redirects and corrects when necessary, but the teacher grants students greater autonomy and fosters the development of independent problem-solving skills. So the role of the teacher is to direct students' focus, facilitate self-reflection, and provide verbal and non-verbal feedback when necessary. Students, on the other hand, are encouraged to speak as much as possible. So most of the traditional tools for language instruction, such as textbooks, worksheets, verb conjugation tables, are completely absent from this method. In their place, instruction takes place through the medium of questionnaire rods and charts that indicate the correct pronunciation of certain letters without the teacher having to teach pronunciation through rote memorization or call and respond exercises. So next, we will move to why might you decide to use the silent way method. Okay, so we know how you feel. Teaching a language with silence, how could that possibly work? But don't be too quick to judge. There are plenty of great reasons to at least give this method a try. So first and foremost, we have this method could help students directed learning. We all know what the research says. Students learn better when they can be active participants in their own learning. It just seems logical that when it comes to language, allowing students to do all the talking is the best way to accomplish that. Next, it will improve problem-solving skills. So without your input as a teacher, students are forced to figure out all kinds of things on their own, like mimicking some of the real-life problem-solving situations they might find themselves facing if immersed in their target language. So these are skills they will not have the opportunity to develop if the teacher always does the figuring out for them. Next, it will increase engagement. So learning basic vocabulary and pronunciation can often feel monotonous to students. So with the silent way, students are engaged in the learning process, discovering words and sounds instead of having these drilled into them. So students become more engaged and invested in the process as they assume more responsibility for their own learning and thus have more relevance. Next, it will create a positive, safe learning environment. So limited input from the teacher means almost no criticism, which means students feel that it is safe to make mistakes a necessary step in a language learning. And last but not least, it can supplement further student-centered work. So including the above features in your students' learning will complement deeper interactive and independent work with the language. Okay, so that's all from me. I'll be passing the stage to the next presenter.
Okay, hi, my name is Shafira and I'll be speaking about several topics. First is the potential problems with the silent way. And as we can see here, there are two potential problems with the silent way method. First is this method might be strange and unfamiliar. And I'm sure that students have never experienced anything quite like the silent way before. I'm pretty sure this method is very unfamiliar and new to all. And they might be unsure of how to handle the process of the method in the beginning. And the second potential problems would be that students might think that they are not getting enough feedback from the teacher, because as we know, the silent way method is really limiting the teacher towards speaking, and that includes not speaking about giving a feedback. And students may feel insecure about the lack of verbal positive or negative reinforcement when they're experiencing the silent way method. Okay, next I'll be speaking on the strategies to make silent way work. So if you're a teacher and you have decided to actually use this method, here are some of the strategies that I could suggest to you to make sure that this method work in your classroom. Okay, so the first strategy is to make sure that you educate the students thoroughly about the what and the why of this method. So, as a teacher, you have to make sure that you are very clear towards the students on what exactly is this silent way method and why exactly are you applying this method in your classroom. And make sure that the connection between the student and the teacher, and of course the student and the method, is clear, so that there would be no confusion when the method is ongoing in the classroom. And the second strategy is to emphasize on the quality rather than the quantity. So I'm sure you're familiar with the method by now through the previous explanations. And if you're familiar with the method, you should know that in this method, mastering the lesson is the priority rather than simply covering everything in the curriculum blindly. So teacher need to be clear on the students that by using this method, the teacher will not simply just skim through a curriculum topic in the lesson just like that. We know silent method is very, very thorough, and it emphasizes every details in the lesson. So make sure that you emphasize the fact that this method is focusing more on quality rather than quantity. You are trying to master the lesson instead of just learning about it. And next strategy that I could suggest to you is to give feedback non-verbally. So as we know, the silent way method is limiting teachers to not speak, to limit the speaking. But that doesn't mean that you could not give feedback, because you can always convey message with body language, gestures, and facial expressions. And you would be surprised at actually how effective conveying message with body language, gestures, and facial expressions would be, rather than just speaking out verbally. So make sure you try to practice, giving thumbs up or smiling, or if it's negative reinforcement, then maybe shrugging or frowning. Just things to give hints to your students about your feedback. And next, as a teacher, you make sure that you need to check in individually with students, because this method is very strange and unfamiliar, so it might be difficult for some students to actually follow. And as a teacher, you need to check in with them and schedule regular meeting times with them to make sure that they are okay and help them feel more confident in applying this method in the classroom. So make sure that you are with them throughout the journey and make sure they are okay and they are actually enjoying using this method. Okay, and next I'll be answering the question, is the silent way really practical, and how much will your students learn using this method? Okay, so the answer to that question is depending on you and your students, because it's very contradictory. For regular users, teachers and students who use silent way regularly, they will tell you that they have found it far superior to any other method. And for non-users, the ones that have never heard of it or think, why would you even use it, they will tell you that silent way method is nonsense. And that's normal, that's life. So, as with most things in education and as I say in life, a balanced approach is the key. And maybe we need to implement silent way with other methods. Maybe we did not need to implement it all the time. Maybe there are certain topics that we can implement it. So in short, the silent way perhaps has more advantages than we have given it credit for. And this method deserves, at the very least, a second look. So if you are contemplating on using this method in the future, I wish you the very best of luck. And hopefully this method could reach out to your students and help you to improve your delivery method and your lessons.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. My name is Anissa Jana binti Ahmad Syariman, and for this part I will be explaining about how the implementation of the silent way method will be conducted in the 15 minutes classroom session. So to start it all off, our main targeted students will be Form 4 secondary school students, and we will be focusing more on their pronunciation or speaking skills. And in addition, we have come up with an activity that may be suitable for the classroom, whereas we use phonetic pronunciation charts as we go through the learning material. The teacher has the designated words and letters paired with the designated colors that are fitting based on the phonetic charts to guide the students in their pronunciation. So implementation of this activity in the classroom will help to increase the students' engagement with the lesson, create an environment where they will have to discuss among themselves on how to pronounce the words correctly, which leads to the students having a positive learning outcome. The video that we are about to show you is a demonstration of how we implement the silent way method on the teaching materials. We took the first stanza from the poem The Living Photograph that designated the letters and words based on the phonetic charts. Hello there everyone. So today we are going to dive into our activity that mainly focus on your pronunciation. So we are going to go through one of the stanza from The Living Photograph, and as you can see here, the letters, they are designated with their own colors, which are basically on purpose. So the colors, they represented the sounds from the phonetic charts right next to the stanza. Without further ado, let's start. E, E, U, oof, A, O, oi, your, O, A, O, air, I, ow, G, jeune, Y, W, sh, K, J, Z, R, L, S, Ch, D, Z, H, N, H, T, B, V, N, b, b, m, my, m, 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 I, my. Small grandmother is tall there. Straight back, white bra, 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 brotherly. E, re, e, brotherly. Ang, glay, glay. A, z, z, Anglaise, z, Anglaise, Anglaise. Shirt, pleated skirt, flat shoes, shoes, ooh, ooh, shoes, shoes, flat shoes, gray bun, a pin, e, I, kind, a kind, old smile, round, ow, 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 round her eyes, eyes, a, eyes, her big hand holds mine, mine, holds mine, white hand in black hand, her sharp blue eyes look, ooh, 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 look at her own death in the eye. Good job!
From this lesson, students can interact not only with teacher but with their other friends. Also, students can correct their errors independently using this method. In conclusion, this method emphasizes student involvement and discovery learning. It uses minimal verbal explanation, which relies on visual aids to help students understand new concepts. Therefore, it allows students learn at their own pace and figure out how the language works for themselves. Students can get individual attention from the teacher using this method. Thank you for watching.